every year in November, for, I don't know, about 5 or 6 years now, the NMRA has talked about the AP awards, and we've tried to always pick a different category. So last year, Greg got his AP for electrical. So we decided that that would be the topic this year. So
Yeah, it's got to be the easiest one.
I don't think it's as hard as some people think it is.
Well, the standards for this were set before DCC really became so prevalent. And so with DCC, a lot of these things are just so easy.
Yeah, these are this one, there's 4 major parts to this, and this is the first part. So I worked on that a little bit today, and you've got to demonstrate that these pieces work. And so what I did was, for this experiment, I just took the first one, which is DC power, and I said that's not applicable, and we went right straight to the next one. I got to figure out how to do that.
Well, that was with me. I mean, some people could still do DC. There are people doing that. I read about them every now and then.
There it is. I guess it, yeah. Okay, so the first one talked about gaps and switches and phase and for troubleshooting. And so I'm not sure that this is what I did. I'm actually pulling it out for this coming up in November, but there's the way you show blocks. I gap it and then I put a milepost by it. Otherwise, you forget where you blocked it at.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And over on the right, I only have 4 blocks. The layout isn't all that big. I have 4 major switches there, and I set them up originally so that I could do a DCC DC thing, and the DC thing just doesn't work, and so I never bothered to use it. But that's a center off switch, and so I could have done something with that. Anyway, that way I can turn the blocks off. Okay, the next thing is a wire turntable. Now I got a turntable. I don't have a transfer table. So I thought, well, I'll just show you the working Y there. And you need to show that a locomotive can go in and out of there without a problem. When that was originally wired before DCC, it was DC, and the way I made it work is let's see if I can. By this switch here, there were gaps, and when this switch operated, it reversed the battery. So as you came in, if you came in on this track here and through there, then you threw the turnout, you could go out this way without throwing another switch. So one switch took care of it, and that was back in the DC day. And it may still be in there, although I'm using electronics now rather than the old switch method. Then they want a passing track, and the passing track starts right down here. This goes underneath, so there's a mirror on the wall so that you can see the train coming up. And a couple of years ago, I redid this. From right in here, there's gaps right here. And these 2 pieces of track are controlled by the switch. So if the switch is for the main, then this track is hot and that track is not. And it had to have a block that long in order that I could get 2-unit diesels and things like that in there and shut them off, so I didn't overrun the switch. And on the wall, there is a signal. If it's green, you know you're on the main. If it's yellow, you're on the passing track. And out of the picture here, down in this area, there's another semaphore that tells you the same thing. So then they want to know about being able to store locomotives and turn them off. So this is the locomotive ready tracks are in here. I have just one main switch, not each track switch. This switch here controls everything that's on this diagram, which is the turntable. The turntable, these tracks are controlled by that switch, so they rarely get turned on. But I position the locomotives and such that the first train out, in this case, happened to be this one. There was another locomotive here, and that's that one. It kind of alternates, and when the locomotives come back in, that's why this track is left vacant, so that because you know when the train comes back in, got to have some place to put that locomotive.
Come up.
And then a yard with at least 3 tracks, and so here's the main is out here, and I consider this an incoming track. I consider this just a storage track, and I consider this a makeup track for outgoing. And this track over here where the arrow is, that's we pull push cars in there for the hump yard, so that the hump yard engine can come down, pick them up, and run them over the hump. Gee, I wished I'd have closed the door before I took that picture. I may have to do that over again. So then it wants to the power supply with positive devices, short indicator, and so forth. But you know, these power supplies were bought from Digitrax. They don't have any of those on there. There is no light that tells you that you have a short or anything like that. Now this unit here, which is an old transformer, it does have that. But I do have one of these fault breakers, and everything goes through the fault breaker. So I guess if everything really shorted out, why the whole railroad would turn itself off. And that is the end of section 1. Now I got to get back to give you the screen.
Ron, when it said, when the requirement was for a switching lead, independent of the main, is that an electrical requirement? I mean, that sounds more like a layout design requirement.
Well, all right, let's go back on that. Let's see if I can get this thing back up again. So which one you're talking about on the
second from the bottom, 1 yard with a minimum of 3 tracks and a switching lead independent of the main line.
The switching lead, what you would call that would be a one where the switcher picks up cars and then they can shuffle them to different tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's possible, but that's kind of an interpretation, isn't it? I might change that. Good point, though, Dave. I can easily do that because the hump yard has that ability. I throw one switch and I have 5 tracks, and I throw one switch and it through a diode matrix why it delivers to the track I want it to.
But is that actually in the NMRA list for electrical?
Well, doesn't that take care of the switching lead? This is from the NMRA. This is not something that I came up with. So I mean that I understand what you're saying there. Is that a electrical or is that an engineering AP thing? But it's in the electrical part. So my assumption is they want you to be able to switch cars in a yard and fan them out, I assume. There is no other explanation telling us any more about that.
being that this was originally a DC specification, they probably want to be able to operate that yard and that yard lead totally independent of what's going on with the main line. Whereas
Right.
for DCC, we wouldn't have that problem. So they probably want to see be able to run, you know, two different power packs or two throttles separately.
Yeah.
for each other.
That makes sense.
Of course, that's true.
They wanted
so
to,
that
you
you
know,
could be
wire that
running
separately.
you could be running a mainline train during the same time that you're doing switching. And of course, as you said, that as long as you're DCC, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll change that to, or maybe I'll put another slide in there and then I've got both ways because I can do that.
Hey, Ron,
Yes,
I just jumped on the NMRA website and what you've got is exactly what they have.
yeah, I
I
know.
think
That's,
you're
I
just
copied
supposed
it.
to show that you can wire it.
yeah, I just copied it off of what they had.
Yeah. I just think they want you to have a functional main line and then a yard with multiple tracks that works.
And as we said, if it's DCC, the problem just goes away.
And while it's always helpful to have a decent switching lead to the yard off the main line, it would be absolutely necessary if you're using DC in order to be able to operate that switcher independent of the main line.
Well, that's where a lot of people would make that lead connect to the main line just for convenience sake. But if you're running DC, you probably don't want to do that.
Well, what you have to do is you have to have the way to push the cars in for this. Okay, you got a cut of cars. You take a cut of cars and you leave it for the switch engine to turn around and fan to all of the yard tracks. And when you place the cars there, you'd have to be able to turn that part of it off of the main line.
Right.
Yeah, I'm talking DC now.
Yeah.
And you could easily do that with switches.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I think sometimes we think these APs as being extremely difficult, and I don't think they are. I think that we probably put too much. We think about it too much. All right, I'm done.
Well, I thought with that as a theme, I can show a few slides that I showed back in February, but then I thought I'd go through my documentation for the electrical AP, go through and see how, show how I accomplished that, if that sounds okay.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of I'll show you mine, you show me yours, because
Right.
you went far more into the DC, the Digitrax world than I did. My stuff is still got a lot of the old DC circuitry.
Right. Yeah.
When I get into signaling, some of the signalings require 5 tortoises in order to make them work.
So these are the slides I prepared for our presentation back in February. So you've seen this, but just to review. So
we
I
all understood it too, didn't we?
right. So this is kind of the look I'm going for. This is one of Lloyd's photos. I'm out of the Upper Peninsula. I think you guys have seen all this, and this is what the layout looks like now. This has changed a little in here. I did this before I actually built this, and now that the new water lines are in, I can actually extend this all the way to the wall. So that's the next project. But so there's staging here, there's staging back here, and basically you run trains out of staging onto the layout. This is Antoine, where we do all the switching to send empties to the mines and to send loads to the ore dock that's out here. This area here, I haven't built yet. I don't know if it's gonna be the tie plant. I haven't been able to establish yet if it was there in 1963. I think it was gone already. And so this may be it's gonna be some kind of industry here. The bench work is built. And this track is laid, and then this area here is yet to be built. But this is actually a lot more complex. I need to update this. And then of course there's regular freight and everything that goes beyond Antoine, and so that goes, there's 2 staging yards here on top of one another. So there's 8 tracks here and there's 8 tracks over here. And so anyway, this is, I don't know what that's all about, but this is what the what my blocks look like. So this is used in the documentation to show how this is all set up, and they're all connected to a here's the PM42 and the BDL 168 that control all this. This is where I do to be able to use transponding to see what's in those yards, and then this is the power distribution here, and it shows how we're getting power to all these things. So it's all obviously all DCC, and then this is just showing how the power is wired to the turntable, and then this is showing how my control panels are wired. So we've got a tortoise going to 2 bicolor LEDs, which go into a Digitrax DS64. There's actually now, I think, 2 or 3 DS74s on the layout. They are definitely inferior to the DS64, at least for what I'm trying to do. But and then the control panel, I think I've got a slide showing what the control panel looks like. These are the staging control panels and how they're wired to show whether the track is powered. There's a switch, and then to show whether there is actually a train on that track, because the staging behind the paper mill is hidden. It's I can get to it from a panel, a sliding panel of scenery, but it's usually not visible. This is actually the stock tortoise diagram to show how this is all wired, so nothing much there. This actually, I had to redo this, and I think it's right in the documentation I'll show you in a minute, but this is just showing how a crossing is wired. So it shows how the feeders go to each of these to make sure we're not shorting out. This is what one of the control panels looks like, and it just shows which way the switch is lined. So obviously this classification 1 is not lined. Right now we're lined to go all the way down to class 4. And so each of those red and green lights just show where you're lined for. This is showing the PR3 and how we connect up to the computer. So that's one of the things you can choose to do. And then this just shows some of the references. So we'll get out of there, and the thing that you haven't seen before is this is the achievement program documentation that I prepared. And so here, these are the requirements, and you need to show what you're showing. So I'm not doing DC, so I did all the DCC stuff. I've got a reverse loop, I've got a passing siding, I'm definitely storing unused motive power. I have several yards if you include the staging, but Antoine is a legit switching yard, and then showing how the protective devices work. And then you choose from, what are there, 12 options here if you include other. And so I just did a turnout, a crossing, a crossover. You only need 3 of those, so that's pretty easy. And then this is a huge amount of options here. I chose to do electrical turnout position, track occupancy, computer control. And when I went through this, I knew I had already had that working. So I could probably do some of these other things. I do have an engine terminal, but that was already done, so it made it easy. And then preparing schematics and all that, those are some of the things I already showed. Then you got to fill out the stuff and get these guys to sign off. So this is just showing how I outlined those diagrams that I showed earlier. So I did this after I prepared that PowerPoint for this group. So this is the DCC layout control using GMRI and stationary decoders. I don't know if that's right, stationary. But anyway, so you saw that diagram. This is the same that you already saw, but that shows the layout schematic showing power districts. It says turntable on there. I haven't really looked at this since February either. So then I've got this Walther's turntable. I think I might have told you guys last time when I was preparing this, I had bought a Walther's turntable like probably 20 years ago and never actually used it. When I went to go use it, the controller for it was bad, and trying to repair it was not going to work. So I just bought a new one. The passing sighting, that's really easy. This is where I used that diagram though to show how the torus machines work. This is actually one where the two turnouts are controlled by one torus machine using the remote accessory that they make. And then this is showing storing unused motive power units. So I've got this all set up in the engine facility now too, but at this time when I was preparing this, this was already set up. These two staging yards that are behind the paper mill, they have power switches on the track for the track power, so that once I pull a locomotive with a train into the staging, I just throw that switch and it turns off the track power, so they're not sitting there idling the whole time. And then this just shows how this is wired to be able to show track occupancy. So once I flip one of these switches on, then I can see by this light right here if it's occupied or not. It's either green or red. Red is occupied and green is empty.
Is it using the resistance of the engine to
No,
determine occupancy?
I'm not sure. I guess it is, yes.
Or do you have an induction coil that the wire going to the track goes through?
No, I have both, but the transponding part of that never really worked real well for me. So I don't use that. So yeah, it's the engine's resistance that actually goes. And then the yard business, I guess I didn't really do a diagram for that other than the track diagram. The turnout was showing just basically the stock stuff. I just use the switches that are integral to the tortoise to do all that work. So that's pretty standard. And the crossing, this, whatever it was I did wrong, I can't remember now, but this is updated and right. How to wire a crossing. I'm sure everybody knows how to do that. There are a lot of crossovers on the layout, but that's easy to do now with DCC. It's not really that challenging. The challenging part is probably just getting the tortoises set up and working right. So then this is one of the things you have to do is show electrical turnout position. So these panels do that. So that's an example of that. Track occupancy, we talked about that. And then the computer control, that's also real easy to do now. You just buy the PR, I guess it's a PR4 now, I think is out, but I've got a PR3. And then schematics, those are already there. And this is the track plan. Like I say, it's changed in here a little But this is essentially, we saw that earlier. I had to flip this thing and I
That's
used,
okay. I just
I
want to
use-
make sure you were in the house.
I use Adobe Illustrator to do this, and so I had to actually flip
You want
this
up here?
to be
Tips.
able to fit on a long lengthwise instead of
Come on up.
landscape. And so that was more challenging than it should have been. Let's just say that. But anyway, that's there, and I think that's it. Oh, and then so these are the references. Some of these are not really railroad books. I've got this Electronics for Beginners book that I use now and then. The Circuitron stuff, Digitrax. And then this is a YouTube video that I used. The JMRI site obviously is great. And then this old Andy Sparandio book that's been out forever. So seems
Hey, Greg.
seems like only yesterday. Yes.
What did you use to do your electrical schematics?
I think I used Illustrator for all this stuff.
Okay.
I might have used I either used Illustrator or Photoshop. I have a subscription to Adobe Creative Cloud that I've maintained for years. It's expensive, but I use it a lot. And so so I just continue to pay the money because it's really nice to have access to that software. So Ron, that's probably how we'll do things in November, huh? And you'll show yours and I'll show mine, or
Sounds good.
all right, well, that's it. That's all we got for you tonight, unless anybody else has anything they want to present.
Hey, guys, I just realized I hadn't remembered to check in earlier.
Hey, Neil.
Yeah.
I was at
You just
Texas
popped in.
Express. I took over 1,000 pictures. At some point, I'll have a PowerPoint to share.
Oh, good. Yeah, hopefully 1,000 pictures might take us into next week, but
The PowerPoint won't use them all.
excellent. All right, well, guys, Dave Fodness is in the middle of selling his condo actually and moving and all that, so that's why he couldn't be here tonight. And but we're going to reschedule with him probably in a few weeks, and that promises to be great. Next week, let's see if I got this.
Greg,
Next week,
Greg,
yes.
I assume everybody on here saw the movie of my layout. And if anybody wants to see it, I could probably get it up for a few minutes.
Okay, that sounds good.
Well, let me go find it while you're talking.
Okay, yeah. So next week is Lester. And Lester is going to be talking about putting trees on the Minneapolis and Northland, his layout up in Minnesota. So that'll be the 14th, the 21st, 28th, and 5th. We're open. And then I've got Chuck Schwartz on the 12th, and he's going to be talking about, he had a picture on Ron's email list a month or so ago about some removable loads he was building for flat cars and gondolas. And so he's going to do a presentation on that. But all those other weeks are open. So Neil, if you get your PowerPoint done, we'll be anxious to see it.
Okay. And I hope Doug is going to have some pictures from his Colorado trip.
Oh yeah, I bet he does.
I've got one or two. Yep.
Doug was,
Unfortunately, I forgot to take the adapter so I could download from the SD card of my camera into my computer. So they're still on the camera. But I also have a few short videos that I did. So, yeah.
Excellent.
yeah, Doug was one of 4 guys I follow on Facebook that were posting from that trip. And I know at least one other guy that was out in Colorado on that thing too. So
Great.
Yep. And I ran into Rod Thompson one day, shook hands with him, spoke to him briefly. So
was he out there too? I didn't know that. So okay.
Or if I got the wrong rod, no, there was another one from Wisconsin, not the one that's on our group tonight. So.
Well, Rod's originally from Wisconsin and he models Wisconsin.
Oh,
I don't know if I can get a full screen or not. Is that a full screen for everybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, this is coming out of the tunnel. This is, I got tons of these, but you want to see something for a few more minutes we're coming by, the Milwaukee side of Tama. This is on one of those cop cameras, about $40. Put it on a flat car. It's small enough that you can put it on an N gauge. The scene you're just going by is taken out of the off the internet. It's of Oskaloosa, and I put the buildings on a black foam board just for a little relief. I was just going by Doug's church there.
yep.
And there's the corn crib that Clark helped make. Here's Gladstone. Going across the lift bridge, which I no longer can crawl under the layout, so I gotta see the switches in yellow so you can go through the crossing. I do have a few trucks on the layout. I'm going to start introducing refrigerator trucks for the like a lot of the packing houses did, since I have some that are Great Western ones. We're riding on the Milwaukee right now, and that's the end of that one.
Very nice.
Let's see if I can do one more to bore you with, and then I'll quit.
Well, everybody knows how to leave the meeting, Ron. So if they're bored, they got choices.
I don't know what this one is. We'll see what happens.
And nobody wants to be the first.
Okay, you're on the Northwestern Railroad here, and you're coming up to the junction of the Milwaukee and the Northwestern in Tama. I rebuilt that. This is a Walther's depot that's been rebuilt. And to the right is the Neil's Creamery, where they have their making butter. So it looks like we're going on the Northwestern by the signals.
Ron, if you take your cursor off the video, then we won't
That
see
help?
that. I think that thing will go away, that little play. Maybe not. Oh,
Did
there
it go
goes.
away?
Yeah.
And there's the tower, which is a copy of the Belle Plaine tower that was in town. The one, the big tower was out in the country, out on the west side, was twice that large. The
Hey,
Tama
guys.
tower was twice that large.
Guy looks like he's parked a little close to the tracks.
Yeah, now you're going over the Iowa River. Of course, the bridge was back then was much bigger than that, but anyway. The backside of what I call Marshalltown, which of course is nothing like it is, really was. I did move that truck because I got tired of seeing it there. The big house behind the wall there was one of my friends, that was John Nye, said, you know, I don't like that house. I said, well, I like that house. So I built it. It became mine. There's the telephone office. You're on the Northwestern Railroad right now. And I think we're going to go into the industrial area, which means we're going to go back onto the Milwaukee. This is going into what I consider the Cedar Rapids industrial area. Obviously, my railroad is, does not follow the real thing. It's all fantasy. And this is the industrial area of the Milwaukee. And I think that's going to be, oh yeah. We're gonna go into where we unload corn. They, at that point in time when I was young, why everything was still done by boxcar and pretty much unloaded by hand. With a, one of you guys could tell me it's one of those things that the cable, they had a board with two handles on it, and the winch pulled it out. What do you call that?
Power shovel.
There you go. Thank you. All right, I'm done boring you.
We saw the operator go through the scene there right at the end. That was good. All right, well, thanks,
If
Ron.
anybody has an Apple phone, there is a bad exploit out there that you need to block immediately by going to 16.6.1. There's 2 0-click iMessage exploits that are nasty. So I just updated mine. It doesn't take very long.
Very good. Well, like I say, next week will be Lester talking about how he made trees, so that'll be interesting. And then after that, anybody wants to present, just let me or Ron know, and we'll get you on the schedule. Thanks everybody for coming tonight. We'll see you in a
Very
week.
nice. Thank you.
Everyone.
All right, bye-bye.